them at the end of this. So now it's my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Cara Guthrow-Murgatroyd, who is our Coordinator of Education and Support for the province. Cara, over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen here. There we go. Okay, can everybody see that? All right. Okay, so welcome again. This is our actually third session, a third virtual session, and we welcome you and we thank you for taking the time to check in with us each Friday from 1:30 till around 2:30 or so. So this week's topic is understanding behaviors during COVID-19. And as Linda had said, we usually decide on a topic depending upon what the themes are, what people are looking for in the community when they reach out to us. So looking at behaviors, we'll be looking at the different types of behavior that people will experience. It's also important to note, though, that every person is going to be quite individual as far as how they act and react. It will be quite dependent upon a number of factors, including a person's personality type, their cultural values, their support systems, their coping style, and of course their worldview as well. We have to take all of those things into consideration when we're trying to understand a person's behavior. And we also know now that we're really living with this COVID pandemic. It's unprecedented times, and so with that comes uncertainty and a host of other challenges. So today, what we really hope to do is to look at how these changes affect us and offer up some suggestions on how to navigate the road ahead. So I'm just going to click forward to the next slide here. Okay, so when we think about behaviors really, behaviors have meaning. And the description here in the second bullet, this is a descriptor that people living with dementia have decided is important to them as far as explaining how important it is for us to understand that the actions, words, and gestures of persons with dementia express something important, okay? It expresses something important about their personal, their social, or their physical environment. And so we know behavior is a response to something that's happening, and some behaviors can be really quite complex as well. So we also need to consider when we're thinking about behaviors, are these behaviors upsetting, or is there another component to the behavior? Is the behavior posing a risk for either the person with dementia or for the person caring for the individual with dementia? So we kind of get into risk there as well. And so if there's risk involved, we need to strategize around it. If there isn't any risk, then we need to kind of step back and think, okay, there may be some other solutions to this specific behavior that's happening. And I think it's important to note, people with dementia will begin to have difficulty in expressing themselves and letting you know exactly what it is that they might need. The person isn't trying to be difficult. I think what we have to do is to try to understand and to try to make the connection between the behavior and what the person is trying to tell us. Sometimes that can be tough, right? It's only after understanding the behavior that we can then try to find solutions to address the specific behavior. And when we think about, for people with dementia, this is dementia affects the brain. And because the brain is diseased, it's impaired, it's going to affect, obviously, the way the person perceives their world and the way they respond to the world around them. So something else that we can kind of think about as well when we think about behaviors. All right. Okay, so this is a big question. So what has changed during COVID-19? I think a better question would probably be everything has changed. I don't think there's one thing in particular. There's so many different things that we're now sort of living through. It's isolation. So now we may not be able to, visit our family and our friends, and we're kind of, we're housebound. And for those individuals who may have been outside of the province or who were traveling, you know, they had to go into quarantine, and that was 14 days and quarantining themselves from their own family. We know that we've all had changes in routine. So it's a change in routine for family members with dementia, but it's also a change in routine for us, you know, and that can be really tough. Can be difficult. And so we need to look at other ways of coping with those changes. We're also, you know, we're spending, for some of us, we don't see our families. For others, you know, the ones that we're living in the same household with, we're spending a lot of time together. We're talking 24 hours, 7 days a week. That in and of itself, I'm sure I'm speaking to the masses here, but that can be difficult too. So you have partners who are working in the same household, and maybe you have, you know, maybe your aunt or maybe your dad or your mom is living with you now, and the kids are in the house and they're trying to get schoolwork done, and you're trying to get work done, and you've got dad coming in who's popping in because he doesn't understand all of these restrictions that are happening. And also looking at the news. My goodness gracious, in Nova Scotia here, we've had so much distressing news. And that in and of itself causes a range of different emotions. You know, we're feeling grief, we're feeling fear, uncertainty. All of these different things can impact our behavior. And when our behavior is impacted, the person with dementia, obviously their routine has changed, but the way we react to them will affect them as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but some of the other things that have you know, occurred since COVID-19, we're not maybe getting out and getting exercise, so our walks have been affected. Being able to go to, you know, different day programs and having different activities that we can participate in, those things have been canceled. Frustration. And we all know how many times we've been, you know, hand washing. We've been doing a lot of hand washing lately. I don't know about you, but my hands are looking pretty bad these days, but make sure you have some hand lotion on hand. And then of course, looking at regular support systems, the support systems that we would have had in place prior to COVID, they're not there. So we may not be getting the home support. Families may not be getting the respite that they used to get. So all of these things are playing a huge role on how we're living and how we're behaving. All right, so let's move on to the next slide here. Okay, so, and it's important to note, you know, we're all going to be experiencing different things and having different feelings. People with dementia will experience a variety of different feelings, and so will caregivers too. And I think we have to acknowledge that these feelings occur and that we kind of have to settle through them, but we also need to be aware of some of the things that we can do to mitigate some of those feelings. So let's just talk for a little bit about, you know, what are some of the feelings that people with dementia may be having. So they may be bored. So, you know, before they used to maybe go for a cup of coffee with a neighbor or an old friend. And now because of the physical distancing and the fact that we can't go to restaurants anymore, those things have changed. So there's not enough that we can do in the run of a day. People may be feeling scared, sad, frustrated as well. There's a lot of frustration that can occur when we can no longer do the things that we used to do. Confusion in that, you know what, I used to have a fairly regular routine. I used to go bowling on, you know, Thursday nights, and now I'm not able to go bowling on Thursday nights. I used to see Bob on Tuesday. So all of those things are confusing for a person with dementia. And so confusion may lend itself to frustration or irritation as well. So a number of different things that are happening to all of us, okay? And it may be difficult for us to try to, you know, help our family members to maintain their independence as well and quality of life when they're not living in our home. So there may be more feelings of confusion because our person with dementia, or maybe it's an aunt or a mother or a father who's living independently in the community, and then all of a sudden they're confused because no one is, you know, nobody's coming to visit anymore. Okay, so there's some of the feelings that people with dementia may be experiencing. Okay, and as caregivers, I'm curious as to how many of you are experiencing, some of these things that are listed here, with change and with not being able to do the things that we used to do. I think there's sort of like a heaviness that we feel, and we get tired, and some of us may be feeling, possibly unproductive as well. I think a lot of us who are working from home during this period of time, we're feeling that way. And grief, I think, is compounded for us here in Nova Scotia in a variety of ways. Grief, which is associated with the loss of what was and how we used to live our lives, but grief and losing those amazing people that we lost a couple of weeks ago in the tragedy that occurred in Portapique. And then we're also feeling the grief as well, that through the HMSC Fredericton, we've lost some more Nova Scotians and Canadians. So grief is pretty close at hand right now. We may be feeling scared, sad. We may be feeling isolated. We're all feeling isolated. So there's some of the negative emotions that we may be having. And in speaking to some of my clients lately, I've been happy to hear too, though, that some people are saying that they're actually grateful. They're contrasting what's happening now, but they're also contrasting it with being grateful. And they're kind of writing notes down to say, you know what, I'm really grateful that I'm able to spend more time with my mom, because I can work from home now and I'm able to see mom. I can see her 24/7. I can help her with her medication. So that's not a stressor for me anymore. So that there's that sense of gratefulness and all of this other stuff that's happening. And then there's an appreciation as well that things have sort of slowed down. We hear in the environment, like the air is getting cleaner, and there's less fumes going out into the air, and those sorts of things. So there's some positives that are happening here, but sometimes we need to have a balance of that. And so what we're hoping we can do is to offer up some suggestions, and also to know when we're feeling a certain way for caregivers. We need to acknowledge how we may be responding differently to our family members when we're feeling a certain way. So in the past, for instance, we may have had more time for ourselves. We also, we may have had more reserve, so we didn't get frustrated when we got asked that question 5 times in a day, right? And we know that people are very good. People with dementia are very good at picking up on our emotion and the way we communicate non-verbally, all right? So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And so our reaction when we think about these behaviors, our reaction may be contributing to the specific behavior. And I think Maya Angelou said it best, people won't remember what you said or did, but they will remember how you made them feel. I always keep that in the back of my head whenever I'm doing education. And I think it's a really good piece of information for us to remember, when we start to feel a certain way, and just knowing the way we enter into a room can really affect a person as well. Okay, so looking at some behaviors that might occur, and I'm thinking for those of you watching today, you may be familiar with all of these, or maybe one or some of them. If you have any questions at all throughout the presentation, please remember to use the chat box, because we will be taking those questions, and we want to make sure that we have the opportunity to answer your questions. Okay, so I'm going to go through some of these, not all of these, because we don't have a lot of time. We've got about 20 minutes. So restlessness. Restlessness can occur. Usually we tend to see this if a person is bored, if they're not doing enough things that add to their quality of life or give them a sense of purpose. And sometimes that will happen. We'll see that happening later in the evening, usually around supper time. So suggestion there would be to try to find an activity that's calming, soothing, maybe going out of the living room that has the news, the distressing news on, and going to a quiet area, which can help with some of that restlessness. Aggression may show as, it could be verbal abuse. It could be swearing or threats. And, dad never used to swear. And then all of a sudden these things are starting to happen. And so there could be a variety of reasons as to why a person is becoming aggressive. It could be because their routine is, it's mixed up a little bit, or it's changed. It could be because they're tired. It could be because there's a disrupted sleep pattern. Pain may be a reason as to why a person may become aggressive as well. We have some really good guides that I'll talk about at the end of the session to share with you so that you can get more detailed information about behaviors. But repetition, another behavior, confusion. So things just aren't making sense. And so we know people with dementia have a difficult time in orienting to place and time, what day of the week it is. And even now, I think it's hard for us to know what day of the week it is sometimes. And so hallucinations, paranoia, and uninhibited behavior too are just some of those things. Okay, so what are some of the things that we can do? Okay, so looking at some things, these are some calming techniques that we can really start to look at when a person is reacting in the moment, okay? So what we'd like to do is to respond to the emotions in a calm, reassuring tone, okay? And so sometimes what we can do is to provide some distractions. And I think some of us are really good at providing distractions. It kind of comes naturally. But for other people, and we may need a little bit of guidance. So if your family member is upset, maybe it's offering up a drink, or giving them maybe it's some chocolate or a piece of cake or something. I know myself, food is always a great distraction for me, probably too much more now during this the isolation and everybody staying at home. Another distraction could be playing music. And I think it's really important to play music that your family member likes from their era, right? It's a great way to move a person from one behavior to another, not another behavior, but something more positive. And then again, if your family member has been in the house all day, or if they've been in their room all day, maybe it's just a change of scenery. Maybe just kind of, going outside for a few minutes, going out on the back deck, having a cup of tea, something like that. So these are techniques that you can use in the moment, all right? So the following techniques that we'll really look at are based more on looking more at planning a schedule. So more of a preventative measure when we think about behaviors. Okay, let's just flip through here. Okay. So looking at keeping a daily schedule. So really important to have regular times for getting up in the morning, bathing and dressing. So these things may have changed a little bit for the person with dementia, because now they may be living with another family member. And so you're trying to get used to a new routine. We're all trying to get used to that new routine. But if we can try to ensure that there's consistency in getting up in the morning, bathing and grooming, meals and bedtime, that will be key in helping to alleviate or mitigate some behaviors that can occur. Routine will help not only you, but also your family member with dementia as well. And so in isolation, the schedule will obviously differ from your regular life, but adapting it to the new circumstances and sticking with the same new daily routine will be helpful for both of you. And so a regular schedule will help physically with the person's biological clock and provides really an environment for having a sense of predictability and safety as well, which I think is really important. And for the caregiver, it's really important to be able to have goals, to have small goals and objectives to meet every day, like each hour throughout the day. It gives you a sense of being able to control and master, but to plan out what the day is going to be like. And with COVID, what's happened is there's been a lot of change in routine, which makes it more difficult for us, right? Okay, and so again, looking at other things that we can incorporate into the daily schedule, it's considering quiet times and naps. So with change, a person may become overwhelmed. So maybe, a nap may be a good idea, just a bit of a rest. We know that for people with dementia, sometimes focusing and concentrating can be exhausting. So if you see that your family member needs a nap, then that's great. You know your family member best. So they may be able to have lengthy naps in the day. Maybe not. It depends upon everybody's own, circadian rhythm. Some people may benefit from a 15 to 20-minute nap. Other people may be able to have more. So you know your family member best, so you can gauge there. All right. Okay, the healing power of nature. Oh my goodness. I think I have to share with you, this is one of the things that has really helped me during this switch to, being at home and isolating from friends in the community. It's getting out, and if we can ensure that we can get out regularly to get some fresh air, it's so important. I know there's some restrictions. We can't drive to, Point Pleasant Park or some of the other parks in HRM or across the province, but we can walk in our own communities or walk around in your backyard, get outside, do some raking of the leaves. That's so, so key. And having the opportunity to get some of that sunshine. We've just come out of the winter and we're going through a difficult time with this, but having some sunshine and vitamin D can help with our sleep patterns as well. It can help with our mood, just getting outdoors. And if you can incorporate that with exercise, that might be just as helpful, actually. So that's a good segue into the next slide here. So exercise really helps us to improve our mood. And for you, those of you who exercise regularly, I think you could probably attest to that, right? Really great to be able to get out, go for a walk. Also, we know that it can help to maintain our physical health too, right? When we think about living well with dementia or reducing risk for dementia, exercise is key. Geriatricians now are prescribing exercise, really, really important. And we know that it can help to reduce stress and help to enhance our sleep, right? Exercise not just before bed, but exercise can actually help us sleep better at night as well. And then, of course, there's studies too that say that exercise can actually help to improve thinking and may actually help in delaying cognitive decline. Okay, so it's not the intensity of exercise. We're actually going to be looking soon at maybe, I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but we're looking at maybe some options for you in the future around exercise. But there are some really great online videos for seniors, including chair exercise routines that make exercise accessible to everybody. And it's important too to make the exercise fun. And you want to make sure that, you're having fun and that it doesn't seem like it's work. So you want to have fun with the exercise too. Okay. So exercise is key. Oh, and then meals and food preparation. Okay. So we know that when there's any type of virus around, we want to ensure that we maintain a good immune system. And so having good nutrition is really important in order for us to boost our immune system. So what we look at is more fruits, more vegetables, fruits like berries, which are high in antioxidants, really, really key. And the other thing too is plenty of fluids. Okay, really, really important for us to maintain fluids so that we don't get dehydrated. And another thing, making meals together is a wonderful activity that you can do together. So when we're looking at ways to reduce boredom and things to do during the day, if you're able to have your family member with dementia, give them a few things to help out, give tasks, right? Have them engage you as a sous chef, preparing, like maybe it's peeling the potatoes, setting the table. And then, of course, the foods that we eat as well can give us comfort, right? So maybe it's more baked bread or culture-specific foods. And we know it's really kind of interesting, the connection with memory, smells and scents can bring back memories. I know myself when I smell popcorn and cotton candy, it brings me back to being a kid and going to the circus in Cape Breton. So those are the sorts of things, and that's another great way to bring in conversation. So meals, food prep is a really great way to bring people together. And maybe doing, cooking something or cooking in a different way, bringing out the barbecue. It's perfect. This is the perfect time of weather now that we can use barbecues. Okay. And then finally, we've got activities during isolation. So there's a number of different, these icons here, representations of some of the things that we can do. So looking at movies and really looking at probably some old classic movies, and musicals are really great. We know of the importance and the connection that people have to music. And the other things too, when we're looking at different programs, comedies, 30-minute sitcoms are an excellent way for people to occupy your time, but to have fun and enjoy the time together. Music, we've got a little picture there of a guitar. So music has consistently really shown to improve behavior in people with dementia by, it helps to reduce depression, anxiety, and agitation, which is key. And dancing. Did you know that ballroom dancing is actually, we think about, things that we can do to reduce the risk and live well. Ballroom dancing is one of those things that we can incorporate if we've got the room, but we're learning steps, we're having fun, and we're exercising. So it kind of incorporates all of those things in together. So finally, we're looking at the little icon there that looks like an iPad. It's trying to connect with people on a regular basis, on a daily basis, okay? So maybe it's 30 minutes a day doing some FaceTime, or maybe it's Zoom, like what we're doing today. And also there's that connection. So it's short connections with family members that you can't see physically, but maybe calling them on the telephone. Okay, that's another good connection as well. And then finally, board games. We've got a little set of dice there. And so board games, I was chatting with a lady the other day, and she said, her husband was having difficulty playing crib, but what they decided to do was to start playing checkers. So we can kind of change up the routine a little bit by maybe simplifying some things to make it easier for people as well, okay? And Beth actually did a really wonderful education session last week. It will be up on our website, actually, and the education session was all about things that you can do online as well as things that you can do at home. So I'd get you to check that as well. So just to kind of tie things up a little bit here, some extra resources that we have from the Alzheimer's Society. We've got fact sheets that you can access on our website, or you can give us a call and we can send those out to you. We can mail those to you by post. Communication is an excellent resource. It is part of our day-to-day series. The middle stage is part of our progression series. So it talks about some of the expectations that you can see in changes in behavior and some strategies. And then conversations about dementia and responsive behaviors. This is a fairly new fact sheet, and I'm not sure if I can show this. I can show this to you in a few minutes. And then a couple of other websites as well. At the bottom there, Home Living with Dementia, and this is on our the Alzheimer's Society of Canada website, Managing Through COVID-19. And then finally, we have the Canadian Addiction and Mental Health website, which provides excellent information on living through COVID-19. Okay, and then finally, of course, we ask you to, include your questions in the chat forum there. I see Linda's popping in. If you have any other questions, we've got our info line number up there, so please feel free to give us a call and we can answer your questions.
So thank you very much, Kara, for your thoughtful presentation and reminding us that behaviors are a way of communication. As someone's abilities with dementia decreases with the progression of the disease, or finding it more difficult in ways to express themselves. And often we almost have to be detectives to try to figure out what some of the things might be that are contributing to that behavior. And sometimes it's our own behavior that's causing someone to react in a certain way. So really appreciate that. So please put your comments up on the chat. Well, I'm going to start off with one that says, there's also guilt about not being the best caregiver we can be, because there's so much coming at us from so many different angles, and trying to deal with the guilt that I'm tired.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things. Guilt it's sort of like a it's one of those emotions that follow us along. And I think we always, as people, we tend to think of the things that we could have done better, and we concentrate on the negative sort of, but what you have to do is think about all of the amazing things that you've done up to this point in order to support your family member with dementia. You've probably taken them to a number of different appointments. You've managed maybe picking up groceries for them during COVID, calling them on the phone regularly, calling to check in to make sure that they're taking their medications. And so I think we have to be kinder to ourselves.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're kinder and we're more compassionate to others than we are ourselves. So I think it's really important for us to take a step back, breathe, and to do something for ourselves to separate ourselves from that guilt.
I agree. Sometimes we're way harder on ourselves than we would be to someone else.
Yeah.
So maybe one of the strategies is think of somebody else in your shoes and what advice would you give them, right?
Definitely, for sure. Yeah.
So another question is, somebody wrote that they had trouble explaining to their spouse that they couldn't visit the grandkids.
Yeah. And that's a tough one. That's a difficult one because we're all sort of in isolation. And so what I would say to that is, because they won't remember why they can't see their grandkids anymore, what you might want to try is to have more contact. So if it's through FaceTime or if it's through Zoom, there's a variety of online ways that you can connect with people, and making sure that you have more frequent telephone calls. And the other thing too, which was a suggestion from one of my clients, was to start writing little notes to each other, and popping them in the mail so that they can, the grandkids can write or draw pictures, and send them in the mail and send them to granddad, that sort of thing. So I think those are some of the things that we can start doing, because we can't see each other. We want to make sure that we, safety is paramount, but it can be really, really tough. But just trying to incorporate more, shorter, maybe periods of time where you're connecting more regularly throughout the day by telephone or by Skype, FaceTime, those sorts of things.
That's an excellent suggestion. Even if you're sending a letter to someone who lives down the street that you can't physically be with, it's exciting to get mail.
Yeah, and some, depending upon where you live, some people still have those little mailboxes, and wouldn't it be lovely to just open up a mailbox and put in the letter, and then just put the little red flag up, and you can look outside and see, got mail. You've got mail.
It might be an opportunity to introduce a whole new generation of what physical mail.
Yes,
right?
Yes, that'd be fun. Yeah.
Bring back Canada Post.
Yeah.
Another question is, what can I do if I can't leave my husband home and I have to get groceries? What would you suggest?
Yeah, that's a great question. Really great question, especially now. So, and this has come up a number of times through InfoLine as well. And so if you're really struggling, you need to get groceries, and you're concerned that your family member, you can't leave your family member alone for a period of time, our suggestion is to, call your children, or your adult children, siblings, friends, neighbors, and ask them, if it's groceries, make a list, send them the list, and ask them to do the grocery shopping for you. They can come back, drop it off at your doorstep, ring the bell, and then you can pick your groceries up. So that's one suggestion. And then another suggestion, I know different pharmacies are doing delivery. So if you're looking specifically for medications, then looking at delivery options from the different pharmacies, and the larger pharmacies can probably deliver more than just, medications. They may be able to deliver that, the bread or the milk or the margarine, whatever it is that you might need. And another thing that's become really popular is online shopping, in the sense online grocery shopping. So you can literally go through the shelves and pick what it is that you need, and put it in your grocery cart. And so what happens if it's Superstore, Sobeys, or Walmart, or any of the other grocery stores, you drive up into a designated area. The phone number is there when you get there. You call the number, they ask for your name, and then they bring the groceries out to your cart. You don't even have to touch the groceries. You open up your trunk and they put the groceries in your car. So that may be another option as well for those of you who do not want to go grocery shopping because they're worried about their family member with dementia, their partner with dementia, and not wanting to leave them at home.
Great suggestions, and I'm just going to pick up on one of your points is sometimes we don't like to ask other people to help. You might have lived a whole life doing things for other people, but it's time to let other people help. And when I'm giving presentations, sometimes I ask, because I know this comes up over and over again. I don't want to put anybody out, but people are looking for ways to help. They want to help. It makes us feel good when we help somebody else. So knowing a practical thing like, could you pick up these 10 items for me at the grocery store, can help them out as well, because they feel good when they're able to contribute.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're known as, as Canadians, as Nova Scotians. We want to help. We're here to help each other, and we're going to get through this together.
So all this time we're spending at home, we're spending 24/7, like as you said, our routines and things that might have brought joy to our life, some of those things are on hold. What do I do when I feel myself losing patience?
Oh, and who hasn't lost patience from time to time with family members, right? So that's a really
at the best of times.
At the best of times, yeah. And so if we have the sense that we're losing patience, that's a flag, right? That this is getting to you, and it's all getting to us. So what do you do? What have you done in the past to reduce your level of stress? What makes you, what are your things that you do that calm you? Is it reading a book? Is it going into another room? If you're frustrated and you don't want to show your frustration, maybe it's leaving, the kitchen from where your partner is, and then maybe it's going upstairs, and, it's trying to just remove yourself from the situation for a minute, but also, taking time to take care of yourself. The more self-care we have, and the more we look after ourselves, the better we are able to deal with stress, with change. If we don't do that, we're just going to kind of cycle down. So we really need to pay attention to looking after ourselves. We need to fill up our cup. And right now, some of us, we don't have anything in the cup. So, and the challenge of caring for a person and supporting another person can be difficult to support you, but you have to do that. You have to continue to take care of yourself in order to support the person. So if you're feeling frustrated, by all means, just take a breather. Go to another area of the house. And you've seen these Facebook ads where people are saying, oh, I'm going on vacation. I think I'm going to go up to the second level of the house, that sort of thing. Give yourself permission to do that. Okay. Really important. And, if there's somebody that you can call on the phone, if there's that friend that you can connect with that makes you smile, that makes you giggle, reach out. As you said, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's the same when we're not feeling okay. It's okay to talk about it. We need to speak about it. And if you have that friend that you can call as a support, engage your support networks.
So here's another question. If you can't get away because the person you're caring for has dementia and they're following you around, sometimes we call that shadowing. Any suggestions on how you can take that breather when the person might not let you out of their sight?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And that is really difficult because for people with dementia, the reason why they're present with you and they're shadowing, following you around, is because their sense of time is not the same as ours, right? So you may walk from the living room into the kitchen and be gone for 5 minutes, turn around and Bob is standing behind you, because for him, that 10 minutes was an hour. So they're not able to judge that. And so that can be really, really difficult. And it's harder now as well to get respite, right? And so to be able to do things without your family member being right behind you, we don't have access to that support that we may have had in the past.
And that family member too might just find a lot of comfort in having you in their vision.
Yeah, it's just to know, to have you, in line of sight.
So I don't know, everybody relaxes or finds that way to self-care different ways, but it might be something like turning on a dance video and dancing just to...
Yeah, it's a distraction, right? You're trying to find other things for your family member to do. And if there's a specific activity, maybe if they like to paint, it could be watercolors, it could be the adult coloring books. So maybe that will enable your family member to focus in on that activity while you go to the washroom or while you go have a shower. It's to try to find something in that brief period of time for you to step away and
Or
not have to worry.
even for you, like I
And
just
for
need to
you, oh,
dance for 10
yes.
minutes and hear this uplifting music, and that's entertaining.
Yeah.
Actually, it would be entertaining if I was going to dance for 10 minutes, but it would release some of my stress and
Yeah,
actually entertain or calm somebody else down.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, what happens if you talked a little bit about this earlier about what happens if someone does get aggressive, when I'm trying to give them a bath or something, but my safety, I feel
Yeah, so if
good
you're,
about my safety.
and that's key. And that's something that I think some family members and partners and caregivers are reluctant to do is, they see behaviors getting escalated and they're fearful. And we always say, remove yourself from the situation, go into the bathroom, lock the door. If it's that severe, if you are concerned about your safety, if your safety is at risk or your family member with dementia is at risk, what we say is call 911. Do not be afraid to call 911. It's okay to call 911. And
It's important when you call to let them know
let them know that the person has dementia. So this is so that when they arrive, then they're aware that, oh, okay, so we're dealing with something that's a little bit different in this aggression. And the person may be, they may be just having that behavior for about 20 minutes or half hour, 30 minutes. And then when they arrive at the door, they're back to normal and they can't remember that they were, maybe swearing or there's some physical abuse that may have been happening. So really, really key to call 911. And when you do call 911, ensure that they know that the person that is at risk is a person with dementia.
Yeah. There's other safety issues too, like we talked about how important it is to wash our hands, and say I came home with a bunch of groceries and the person wanted to help me and we know that they haven't washed their hands, and that can lead to frustration when we're constantly, I look at one of your slides, constantly reminding someone to wash their hands can be irritating to that person.
Yeah. So, definitely. It's irritating to us too, to have to, wash our hands regularly. Yeah, having hand sanitizer on hand. So when you walk in the door, maybe there's just like a little desk there. Everybody has sort of like a little table that they throw everything on, or a shelf. Have some hand sanitizer near, and offer to use the hand sanitizer as sort of like a massage, like a hand massage, but using the hand sanitizer. It's soothing, it's calming, but at the same time, you're getting the job done. You're making sure that their hands are clean as well, right?
Yeah.
And because it's frustrating to have to wash your hands over and over again. And we've got some really great signage as well that we can share with folks if they need them. And I know the Nova Scotia website also has some really great signage too around washing your hands.
And as we're having this conversation, I'm also aware that as caregivers, you've got a full plate, and now we're telling you to do all kinds of other things. Pick and choose what you need to do. Everything doesn't have to be attended to. Do the priority items and give yourself a little bit of space. And what has to be addressed and what doesn't. And as you said, safety issues are something that you want to bring forward. Sometimes people have behaviors because something medical is going on. Yeah. Can you speak to that about watching for signs that people's medical health has changed?
Yeah, so if you see something happening, if something happens within a 24-hour period, and there's a significant change in personality, or maybe somebody has withdrawn significantly, or you see that they're in pain, really, really important to be able to go to the family doctor, to call the family doctor to say, these are some of the things that I've noticed, some of the changes. Call 811. 811 is an excellent service. You'll be able to kind of talk through the symptoms that your family member is having. Really important for that nurse to know on the other end of the phone that your family member has dementia, but this is not their typical way of, reacting, or this isn't their typical routine, or it's something that's new. If it's something new and it happens fairly rapidly, we really want to make sure that they see a family doctor to see if there's something else that's happening there.
And the person that is experiencing changes or pain, might not be able to tell you specifically that's what they're doing, and it comes out in behaviors of the way they didn't act. So it is
Yeah.
important to keep that in the mind as well.
Definitely.
We're running out of time. We have one last question here. Any suggestions, and it sort of feeds into that, going to the pharmacy, going to the doctor, how you can help convince the person with dementia to wear a mask when they're out in public or going to doctor's appointments or pharmacies?
Trying to convince them to wear a mask. So sometimes if we show, so people with dementia are very visual as well. So if I were to put the mask on first, you know, and then show my family member exactly how to do it, see if it's okay for me, ask them if I can help them with the mask. We may try to use humor and to be light and to just say, oh, we're just going to do this. We're going to change things up a little bit, you know, just to try to change the way we come at it. Because if we talk to them about the fact that we need this, there's a virus, they may become fearful. And I think sometimes, you know, we can just say, well, there is a flu going around, so we just want to protect ourselves. But the key, I think, is first you putting it on yourself. And so for people with dementia, they're very good at sort of watching what you're doing and then sort of copying the same sort of action. And then if they can't do it properly, or if they're having difficulty, then to offer to support them to do that together.
Great, thank you. So we are at the end of our conversation today. Thank you very much, Kara. Lots of great information there. We do want to encourage you that if anybody has any questions, to call our info line, 1-800-611-6345. We'd be happy to take your questions and comments. We'll also be on the line for a couple more minutes if you want to type any comments or suggestions into the chat box. We're going to have these every Friday afternoon. A couple upcoming sessions will be one with continuing care about how the services during COVID are changing and what's available. And as we mentioned, a session on how to take care of yourself as a caregiver in these times. So we welcome your comments. Thank you for joining us today, and any suggestions for future topics or any feedback on today's presentation, we're open ears. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.